Managing your digital notes can be a lot of fun and very fulfilling. We can structure it in pretty much any way we want. We can create tags, we can create notebooks or folders. It is actually a lot of fun if you like organizing. The problem is that in order to maintain this structure that we build, which becomes a bit of a monster, it starts to eat into our valuable time. Now, this has been a dilemma that I have faced and many of my coaching clients have faced over the years. We can build an amazing notes application structure. It's got beautiful folders and wonderful tagging systems. And then we actually have to come face to face with our daily lives and all the stuff we're collecting and all the work that we have to do. And it just becomes an incredible nightmare just to keep everything maintained. Now, unless you are incredibly disciplined, and there's not many people around there who really are incredibly disciplined, we just give up. And then our notes become a mess, and then we don't want to use it. And that's when things start to go wrong pretty quickly, because notes apps are a valuable part of any productivity system. I like to think of it as part of that triangle of a task manager, a calendar, and your note supporting structure. It is essentially a way to support you in your endeavors, whether that's in your personal life or your professional life. So last year I started doing some pretty extensive research into how best to organize your notes. What I realized was that the country's national archives, such as the United Kingdom, Australia, and the United States, have been collecting documents for years, hundreds of years. In fact, in the UK, they've been collecting documents for over 800 years. The Magna Carta is in the National Archives, or one of the copies. So, you know, of anybody out there who knows how to manage documents and notes and stuff like that, it's going to be the National Archives. So I started researching. I've watched YouTube videos, I've read articles, I've even read scientific papers on how these National Archives are actually organized so that they are easily retrievable, because historians need these places so that they can get to the primary sources in order to write their books or textbooks and things like that. And well, it's been a revelation. I have discovered things that, well, actually are quite natural or obvious now that I know them, but they weren't because I'd got my judgment clouded by all these wonderful YouTube videos describing all these amazing structures. So in the end, I then set about deciding, well, I'm going to put together a course on this. I'm going to put together a course that helps people to be able to build a notes structure, a digital note structure that actually helps them to find what they want when they need it in as quickly as possible. And so, while just before you run away, by the way, this is not a pitch to a course. But one of the lessons in that course describes what I discovered from the National Archives. And there's three areas that all National Archives work on. It's provenance, it's category, and series. Now, I'm not going to go into detail right now on that, but what I want to do is to share with you this lesson from that course so that you can see and try to understand how best to structure your notes so that it works for you in terms of being able to find what you want when you need it. So sit back and for the next few minutes, watch this video from that lesson, and I hope you get a lot of value from it. Okay, so taking the example from the UK National Archives, or any National Archives for that matter, there are three basic parts to any digital or paper-based archive system. There is provenance, category, and series. Now, provenance is probably the easiest one of the three because that is either you or an individual or an institution. Now, this actually helps us when trying to decide whether we want to keep our work and personal notes together, which is my preferred option, but may not be yours. And it also means that you can have a note system for your personal life and a note system for your professional life. That's the provenance. It's the person or the institution. The next part is something called categories. Now, this is going to be very individual for most of us, but I see categories coming under a heading that I like to call GAPRA. That's goals, areas, projects, resources or records, and archive. And if you use those 5 basic categories, that should take care of pretty much all of your digital notes needs, and indeed paper notes for that matter. And finally, we have series. Now, series is essentially the natural order of things. Now, for most digital note systems and for most things that you're going to be collecting digitally, the natural order of things is going to be date order. Now, there are some other more complex natural order of things, but essentially the way you want to be doing this is keeping it as simple as possible. And I found the simplest way is to keep everything in order by date. Now, the great thing about digital notes apps is you can change the order that you wish, because there's a little bit of doubt whether you want to have the series ordered by date created, which means when you actually started the note, or date modified, which was the last time you modified the note. Now, in my case, I actually prefer the date modified because that actually means that the notes that I'm working on right now are always going to be at the top. But the good thing about digital notes is you can change your mind. You can change this in most digital notes apps, I should say. You can choose whether it's going to be date created or date modified. Entirely up to you, and you can switch and change whenever you want. So the 3 basic areas is provenance, categories, and series. Now, when it comes to notes apps, the basic structure of pretty much all notes apps is going to be notebook or folder. Then it's going to be, if we take OneNote for example, a section, if you're using a different one, that might be a subfolder, and then your notes. You've got 3 different areas. So you've got the notebook, you've got sections, and then you've got notes. Now, if you're using something like Evernote, that's going to be a stack, a notebook, and then your notes. So there's generally 3 areas. For example, if we take Apple Notes, which is a bit more simple, you've got the main note folder, and then you can create a subfolder, and then you've got your notes. So it's 3, 1, 2, 3. If you think about it, let's just put provenance to one side for a moment because that's you. You only need one notes app. That's the provenance. The category is going to be GAPRA, goals, areas, projects, resources, and archive. And then the actual natural order, the series, is going to be the notes that you have inside each folder or notebook. So don't worry, I'm going to be explaining that as we go along, but it sounds a little bit complicated. The only thing you need to worry about right now is provenance is going to be the Notes app itself. The categories are going to be your main folder structure. So as I say, in Evernote, that would be the stack. In OneNote, that would be the notebook. And in Apple Notes, for example, it would be the folder. Now, I don't know what Notes app you prefer and which one you use. It really doesn't matter. But what you want to be looking for is at least be able to categorize these 3 areas. And series, of course, is just the individual notes. Okay, so now we've got that sorted out, let's just go in for a brief moment to discuss what makes a good Notes app. Well, thank you so much for watching that brief lesson. I hope you've got some value from it. If you want to take that course, by the way, I've put the links to the course in the show notes below. It'd be great to see you in the course, and I know you'll get a lot of value from it.